So the states were asked to send delegates to a convention, which would be held in Philadelphia in May of 1787.
They realized what they were talking about was going to be very, very important. They posted guards at the door, and they agreed not to talk about anything that was going on in the hall.
The whole purpose of meeting in Philadelphia was to draw up a plan of government. Or really, actually, was to fix what was wrong with the articles and repair them. And within the week, they began to realize that there was so much to repair and so much to fix that they said, let's just start all over again with a brand new government. Let's pull in some of the articles, some of what we did in the Second Continental Congress, but let's put it all and make a brand new government.
George Washington was elected to preside over the convention. Shortly after it commenced, the Virginia delegates headed by Edmund Randolph presented their plan of government.
A large part of it was written and created by James Madison, who was later called the father of the Constitution. They felt in the Virginia plan that if we had three branches, they would each have their separate and individual responsibilities and duties, but they would all be co-equal. They wanted a government where the powers would be divided in the government itself, so no one area could usurp the other parts of the government.
Instead of having only one body of legislators, they needed two, what we now have the Senate and the House of Representatives.
The problem that they had was how many votes each state would get in Congress. Virginia could carry a lot more weight, they had a lot more people. And when Virginia said, you know, for representation, it should be based on a couple of things, and that's money and population. So that was easy for them to say because they had both.
William Patterson and the New Jersey delegates proposed an alternate plan.
Their answer to the Virginia plan on representation was totally the opposite. Equal distribution of votes, one vote apiece, at least have every state the same amount of votes, so that there will be no more than any one state that would be in total control of this new government.
This went on because, of course, the small states wanted to be equal with the large states. The large states said, no, we're kind of getting, this isn't right because we have more people.
When it seemed as though nothing could resolve the conflict over representation, the Connecticut delegation led by Roger Sherman introduced a compromise later to be known as the Great Compromise.
Connecticut came up with the idea that we have now. Why not have a fixed number of people in the Senate? Each state would have 2 senators, but when it came to the House of Representatives, that would be based on population.
But there would be more compromises to come.
There were many compromises that were made after the Connecticut Compromise, and one of them, right on the heels of the Connecticut Compromise, was the 3/5 Compromise.
This compromise was necessary because of the conflict over slaves, whether they should be counted in the southern states' representation.
The problem was they were excited in the fact that if we can count our slaves, then we will get more representation in the lower house. But when you have some states that had less slaves, it was going to be very difficult for that to happen because they would again have the problem of not feeling that they were as represented as the larger states with more slaves. So they came up with the 3/5 Compromise. Every state could count 3 out of every 5 slaves.
After much debate, many agreements were reached, and a committee was formed to draft a document reflecting them. When the draft was presented, a month was spent refining it, and the Committee of Style and Arrangement was formed to create a final version. It was submitted to the delegation for signing on September 17, 1787. Of the 55 delegates, only 39 signed the document. Undoubtedly, none of those were completely satisfied, but they realized compromise was necessary. This concept is summarized in the words of the wise Benjamin Franklin.
I confess that I do not entirely approve of this Constitution at present, but, sir, I am not sure I shall never approve it. In these sentiments, sir, I agree to this Constitution with all its faults.
I think what amazes me is to imagine how did they come up with this type of government.
We can add to the Constitution. Hopefully we will never lose it, but we will know that we should protect it and hold it sacred because it is our life, it is our government, and it represents the most wonderful term and word, which is freedom.